All right. Welcome to the Solve Fast Labs podcast. I'm Karthik Krishnan, and today we have an absolutely incredible guest, and I mean it. So that is Chris. Chris is a serial entrepreneur who's done something most founders only dream about. He's had five, and yeah, you got that right, five successful startup exits, all five acquired. From building the first voice XML powered voice browser with digital voice technologies to creating communications platform like Teleco and Nordster, to co-founding Octoblue, a no-code multi-protocol IoT platform that was acquired by Citrix, where you became the director of IoT engineering, and your last exit, Computes, a decentralized supercomputing platform that was acquired by Magic Leap.
That was
What's really interesting is,
that was a journey. That's why I've got all this gray hair.
yeah, it's you're still continuing the journey. Let's put it that way.
Yes, yes.
So, but what's really interesting, Chris, about you is what you're doing now. You're the VP of Developer Ecosystem at RealSense. As I understand, it's a company that just spun out of Intel in early this year with $50 million in Series A funding. And your depth perception cameras, apparently they're embedded in 60% of the world's autonomous, there you go, showing one, for proof for mobile robots and humanoid robots. So if you're in robotics, automation, or building AI-enabled physical products at all, I'm sure this conversation is going to be packed with insights for me, for everyone who's going to listen to this podcast. So roughly, this is what we're going to look at in the podcast. So we're going to talk about Chris's journey, what it takes to build and scale a dev ecosystem, the operational realities of running a robotics company like RealSense. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Gen AI revolution that started in 2022 and how that has changed or maybe has not changed everything. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Karthik, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week, so thank you.
That's great. So thanks for making time, Chris. Before we dive into RealSense and the robotics world, obviously the most fascinating aspect, reading your, if people are interested, Chris has a website, so you can go and have a look at it. And, when I looked at it, I was like stunned to say the least. So let's give our audience a bit of context about Chris and, talk a little bit about yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'd be happy to. I am a hacker and a kid at heart. I remember a mentor a long time ago said, "Never lose your professional curiosity," and I live by that. And I see a lot of engineers also live by that, where it's kind of the squirrel syndrome. You see the new emerging technology and you say squirrel and you go and you dive deep in rabbit holes. And I do that like most other engineers. Maybe a difference in the way I approach the world is I'm a coder. I've been programming, coding for like 40 years. Like I do it for fun. Like I do it as a hobby. My wife's watching a movie and I've got my laptop, experimenting, writing code, proof of concept ideas. And I guess the other side of the curiosity is business. I love being able to take a brand new idea or brand new technology and match it up with a business idea. Because I think that's where most engineers go wrong. We play and play and play on the new technology and don't think about like the financial opportunity of it. And that's where I like to take, I call it the peanut butter and chocolate experience. It's like where can you adapt this state of the art new emerging tech into solving a problem? And I was, just after I'd built and sold all five of these companies, Intel hired me as an entrepreneur in residence in the Intel Incubator program. So I got, again, like a kid in the candy store, I got to look around at all of the Intel lab technologies going on and identified which ones could we turn into companies and get them funding and spin them out of Intel. So I even learned more about the whole entrepreneurial experience, like interviewing the customer, identifying the problems. And, the thing that I never really focused on was how big is the problem? Is it a headache or a
Absolutely.
migraine? If it's a migraine, you're on the right track. Like I'm solving their problem and they're willing to pay you money to solve it. So I learned a lot as an entrepreneur in residence at Intel. And then when Intel started looking at spinning RealSense out, they said, "Chris, you'd be perfect for DevRel at Insense." And I was like, RealSense. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get paid for this. Like, I get paid to play with robots and and computer vision and Gen AI all day long and talk to fellow developers all day long. Like, oh my gosh, yes, where do I sign?
My goodness, a lot to unravel, Chris. Yeah. So before, I think I'd love to pick out that one thing you said, the chocolate butter and peanut. Can you talk
Peanut
about
butter and
that a little?
chocolate, like
Peanut
Reese's,
butter
yeah.
and chocolate. That was a great analogy. I haven't heard that before. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, and sometimes I use peanut butter and jelly. That's my my example, but yeah, it's where you find a sweet spot, like in and this is like in life too. Like when you find partnerships, like when I see some I do a little podcast like what you're doing and I interview companies or customers or partners that use RealSense technology. And I just try to put a spotlight on them and learn what they're doing. And what I like to do is when I find that sweet spot between customers and our partners, I love doing the introductions. I'm like, oh my gosh, you, Mr. Humanoid Company, was talking about how you wanted to do this, down the road. This other RealSense customer or partner is already doing this. Like you guys should
I
just talk.
see.
And creating those sweet spots in relationships, in business, in tech and business, I think is magical.
Absolutely. I mean, I will use that when I get the chance the next time, that analogy. So, Chris, so tell me something about it. So, five exits is extraordinary. Most founders struggle to get one successful exit. A lot of them, I've famously heard a quote. Mine is in the gaming industry. So, I've famously heard a quote that said, for every 100 angry birds, there's 99 dead birds. So, yeah, so take us back.
We don't talk about the dead birds. We all have
I know.
lots of dead birds scattered around us. We don't talk about those.
So yeah, take us back, Chris. What was the spark that turned you from, working as I saw you worked as in Accenture. I can't remember whether
Yeah,
they're,
I was an engineer at Accenture when they were Anderson Consulting, like
yeah,
before they changed their name and reorganized. I was head of business e-commerce at Blue Cross Blue Shield for like 8 years. I learned my IT enterprise there. Like I helped put Blue Cross on the internet, from websites to sales, online e-commerce and sales of healthcare insurance. So I really learned, like a lot of the back end. Actually, before all of that, I was the CTO of the Arizona Lottery at age 25. I was running all system operations for a full statewide lottery company. So you learn from all of
so
that.
what was that spark?
Yeah, the spark.
Or what was the changing moment then? When was it that you said, okay, fine. I know you mentioned you're a kid at heart and you wanted to keep coding. A
Yep.
little bit like me, I also love coding and just want to keep doing something to the extent that I don't want to sleep sometimes. But
And
did
yeah,
that change? Was there like a pivotal moment where you changed from, okay, I don't want to work in a big company. I just want to do my own stuff.
there was at Blue Cross. We got laid off, and there was a 1 year severance program that I was able and eligible for. So I had a year of pay, you know, from a big company. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, I didn't want to rush in and get another job, so I started playing with this idea of like the voice browser idea. I had seen, traditional IVR systems. I don't know if you remember those days. You'd call your bank with the touch
Yeah.
tones and it'd ask you to enter your account number and you'd put the touch tones in and then you'd listen and tell you your bank balance. Like those were all pre-internet. There was this brand new emerging technology that all of these systems were very proprietary how they worked. And there was a new format coming out, kind of like HTML for the web. There was a group trying to create this voice XML for IVR systems. And I was like, this sounds revolutionary. This sounds like any web developer could start programming and building voice systems, phone systems. So I took that year and really dove into like, how do you do this? What are the opportunities? And built the world's first voice XML voice browsing platform that you could just write code in XML and it would interact with the phone system. And I ended up you made a point a while ago about feeling alive. Like there's something And by the way, all of my startups have been bootstrapped. I've never raised funding for them. There's nothing like feeling more alive without funding and with a very short runway, building a company that either starts generating money or gets acquired in short order, because you're looking at the end of that runway, and you can see the end, and you're
Yeah.
going to run out of money, and you're either going to have to get a job or you're going to have to start asking around for money. And raising money takes a little bit of time too, as well. So you do feel alive with starting a company, and I use that 1 month or 1 year of severance to actually, I think I want to say sharpen my skills, but explore what it would be like to be an entrepreneur, build a company. We were making money. Like, I remember that company, Digital Voice Technologies, I had gone as far as not only was I able to sell the platform to companies that wanted their developers to build, IVR systems for companies, but this was when Salesforce was first talking about, the no software movement. It's what's turned into SaaS today.
Yeah.
My gosh, this was probably 12 or 15 years ago. I put some voice computer systems inside of WorldCom. That's how old this was, the WorldCom Telecom Center in Phoenix. And I was building these voice applications for big companies that wanted to use my service to answer database questions for their callers. And I remember back then charging something like 25 cents per minute as people dialed into their phone numbers that came into my systems,
Yeah.
answering their questions for their customers. And I think my deal with WorldCom at the time was like 2 cents a minute. So I was just like, my gosh, like look at that profit margin. 23 cent, I don't even know what that factor is per
Yeah.
minute per call. And I ended up building like this browser-based little counter that refreshed every minute, and it would make a ka-ching sound, and you'd see like as of now, you just made, $10,000, $11,000. I'm addicted.
You made a money printing machine.
I'm printing money. Addicted. And then
So
there was
so
a
tell me
company.
something.
Yeah.
One of your what you said got my attention. You said you have everything is bootstrap. Now that is something that's another. I think I should have added that. If I'd known, I'd have added that, because I know as a startup founder myself how hard it is to run a company without funding.
Yeah.
How many people approached you, Chris, when you were on your journey? I'm sure people would have seen, at least in the second exit, they'd have seen, oh, this guy, he knows what he's doing. He knows he's at the cusp, as you said, of engineering with business, marrying both engineering and business. And, you're producing amazing products. So clearly, entrepreneurs would have identified, not on VCs or, cap angel investors, people would have identified that's the case and would have offered you funding or come behind you. Did that happen a lot?
I would get people offering and asking a lot. My OctoBlue company, that was the one we sold to Citrix, I partnered with a couple of partners with deep pockets. So while we didn't raise money, they kind of like created this checkbook, if you will, to help me get OctoBlue off the ground before Citrix acquired it. But Citrix acquired it, I think, 1 year into business operations. We were only 12 months into business, and we had thousands and thousands of developers using our platform for IoT automation. So that was amazing. And then with computes, I remember it was just me starting that. I did have a partner on the technology side, but I was funding what I could, and we weren't getting paid, obviously. It's like
Yeah.
you're working for fun, for equity. And I did line up, I did talk to VCs. I talked to a number of VCs, and I found two that wanted to go in on a pre-seed round for $1 million, just to give us some runway, because we were pretty broke on computes. Timing wise, we'd agreed to do it. Then we said, this sounds all good. And I was waiting on them to send me, the written terms, and magically calls me. These were the guys that had raised $6 billion on an augmented reality glasses platform. And they saw what we were doing and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we could use your infinite computing like technology to power the real world metaverse." Like they wanted dragons flying in the sky and everyone to see the same dragon moving around, and the dragon had to fly even if you weren't looking at it. And like they needed all of this compute. So what was funny is on that same week that the VCs were supposed to get me the terms, I got the call from Magic Leap saying, will you fly out to Florida and meet with us? We'd like to propose an acquisition discussion with you. So I actually was able to choose. Like, do I keep going and with $1 million, or do I sell to
Yeah.
Magic Leap and start a new metaverse adventure? And that was kind of an easy decision for me.
Yeah. I mean, when every startup founder gets there, I suppose it's
But
very easy.
But you know what they did? The VCs, they kicked themselves because they said, "Oh my gosh, if we'd have just been a little bit quicker, we'd have made out on that exit too." And they said, "Hey, call us next time. Like when you're ready to do this again, just start with us." And I was like, "Okay, that's a good deal."
Perfect. All right. I have one more question before we move on to the next segment, Chris. So, what would you do differently if you were starting from the last 5 companies that you've done? Is there anything at all you would do differently in hindsight, given that you've got a lot of hindsight?
You know, timing is everything. That's why we don't talk about those 99 dead birds around
Yeah.
unless it's the right time. Technology, business, opportunity, it's like a perfect storm. So I don't think I would have done anything differently with any of those acquisitions because they were in the perfect storm. After selling computes to Magic Leap, I remember talking with a big telecom company and explaining to them what computes did. And their comment they made to us was, "Oh my gosh, we would have bought that from you for maybe $100 million or something." I was like, your eyebrows go up and it's like, well, maybe I sold too early. That was kind of in the back of your mind. Maybe I sold too early. If I'd have just rode this out and made this go a little bit longer, it'd have been worth more. But again, perfect storm in the hand. People like us, I've got
Yeah.
20 other ideas like on the
Yeah.
list.
Correct.
It's like bird in the hand is definitely worth two in the bush. That's a good saying.
Thing. Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So, after 5 exits, you could have literally done anything. You could have started another one. As you said, you had 20 more ideas. You could have become a VC. That's something that people do. Or retired to Phoenix and enjoyed the good weather, which we don't have in the UK, unfortunately. So, yeah, I have to make that joke when I do a podcast. What made you say yes to the VP of Developer Ecosystem? I know you mentioned a little bit about having to play, having the ability to play with cool tech and them actually having to pay you.
Yeah.
So anything else that made you choose being the VP of Dev Ecosystem at RealSense?
Well, I would back up one role. The entrepreneur in residence at Intel, I learned so much from that role. I did that for 3 years. I learned so much. And what I enjoyed out of that experience was I still got to be an entrepreneur, be an advisor, boots on the ground with these other guys, wanting to do a startup. So I felt their energy and I was giving them advice like what landmines to avoid, like what to do next, how do we get it funding? And I raised funding, helped them get funding inside of Intel Capital to ultimately spin out. And what was great about that is I had all the joys of being an entrepreneur with each of those teams, but
Yes.
I didn't have any skin in the game. It was their startups, and Intel was paying me handsomely, so I got my weekends and evenings off. So I was like a quarterback entrepreneur, which you get your life back, like you said, when you're in something like in a startup mindset, you eat, breathe, sleep, you're dreaming about what code you're writing the next day or whatever. So it was like a vacation where I could kind of evaluate the market, what's happening around me, and help some new entrepreneurs live their dreams. So I thought that was a really exciting thing. And then when I was introduced to RealSense, it's timing again. RealSense has like 60% of the robotics market use RealSense cameras for
Yeah.
for stereo vision. So their depth, like human eyes, we have two eyes. These are two depth sensors with an RGB camera in the middle, and these are used on not only the humanoids, like 7 cameras sometimes on a humanoid robot to see their surroundings, but also all those AMRs and robot dogs, quadrupeds. And it's fascinating to me, like this perfect storm is fascinating to me, the Gen AI, the computer vision, the robotics, the VSLAM, the visual odometry, like the AMRs, the market's been doing that for a decade or more, and it feels like the market's mastered it. Like the market knows how to move a four-wheeled robot around autonomously and know where it's at in the surroundings and deliver things automatically. With humanoids, everything's changing because they don't have wheels anymore. They have legs, so they can't
Yeah.
count the like with AMRs, I don't know, for your audience, there's something called odometry, kind of like in your car, the
Yeah.
mileage you see in your dashboard. But in robots, the odometry is typically the ticks of the encoders on the wheels. So as the wheeled robot would move around, it was counting like 1,000 ticks on the left front wheel, maybe 800 ticks on the right, which means that it probably did this, and it's having to always use vision to say, where am I at? Does this look familiar? Where is the kitchen? So I've got to navigate and all of this stuff. Well, with humanoids and quadrupeds having legs now, there aren't the ticks anymore. So now they're having to do it's a whole new set of technologies like visual odometry, like them trying to figure out where did they
Got it.
turn, like with inertial measurement units and stuff. And it's much more advanced, and the world is moving so fast, and iteration, like developers are iterating so quickly on top of each other, on the top of open source. Again, I'm a kid in a candy store. Like I'm just absorbing all of this and trying to contribute the best I can. It's fascinating.
Perfect. Perfect. You already touched a little bit upon it, but let's move on to the next section, which is going to be about RealSense and the robotics landscape. So for our audience, you highlighted a little bit, Chris, who might not be familiar with RealSense, and I'll admit I wasn't until I started looking at, for this conversation. So can you explain briefly what RealSense does? I know you mentioned about the depth perception cameras. What problem are you solving? Is it just that, or, is there more?
So we have 2 product lines. We have like 80 patents and over a dozen cameras on the market. Our cameras are typically depth cameras, which means they see. So let me take a step back. This RGB gets you like HD video, HD, like you would expect from a really good webcam. But
Yeah.
what happens is these depth lenses, they're getting for every frame, so say we're doing 60 frames per second on RGB, red, green, blue, like regular webcam type video. These depth sensors are giving you the depth of every pixel in every frame. So we call it RGBD. So for every pixel, you know how you would say, okay, that's a red, green, blue value of that pixel? We're giving you the depth of it as well. So we can say that pixel is 5.276 meters away. So
I see.
and all of that happens like in a millisecond on these cameras. So there's ASIC compute like happening in the cameras. So it is fascinating the amount of compute and what the camera is doing. And our different product line has really like long range, medium range, and very short range for like humanoids that put them on their wrists. So when they're grabbing things, like it knows close range, like that's a cup and I need to grab it a certain way. That's one whole product line is our depth cameras. We've got a
Hmm.
brand new product that it's doing facial authentication. You can store like 1,000 face vectors, like face prints on this little device. And it's also got stereo vision on it as well. It's got a projector to tell like if you're wearing a Hollywood Mission Impossible mask, it can detect real face versus like a mask. And it's being used for like access controls, like cruise ships where people are running around in their swimsuits, don't have their ID on them. It looks and says, "That's Chris, he can get on the boat," or whatever, or amusement parks, where people are having fun. But there is a robotics play in this I've been talking with people about, and I'm really excited about. It's that I think as humanoids start coming into your homes, like, and helping, I think you're gonna want humanoids especially to only take instructions from certain people, maybe your family and no one else. Like, who can operate me? So the robot's gonna need to know, okay, Chris and Karthik can give me commands. Or the example I use a lot is, "Hey, robot, bring me a beer." Well, the robot needs to know to bring it to Chris, not Karthik. So I think the facial authentication is gonna get very important in robotics soon. But yeah, it's I'm surrounded by people smarter than me, and I love those conversations, around how are we building, we call it the vision cortex of robotics. It's like it's the gap between the eyes and the cerebrum that has to make those decisions. Like, what are you seeing? Is it a human? Is it an obstacle? What does the environment look like? How do I navigate? There's like a gap. We call it the vision cortex. I think that's the next interesting thing that we think about a lot is, beyond just seeing things, how do you turn your sight into intelligence?
Intelligence. Perfect. Yeah. That's a lot, Chris. And tell me something. You mentioned that you guys have 60% of the world's AMR and humanoid robots market. How did that happen? That's like incredible market penetration. So what
Yeah.
made it the go-to choice? What made RealSense the go-to choice for developers?
Well, I think Intel had a lot to do with that. And keep in mind, we've been doing this for, I think, about 12 years now. 80
I see.
patents, 12 years, R&Ding, building cameras, getting customer feedback. So we were making robots cool before robots were cool, is what I like to say. But there's some tongue in cheek with that. But I think
Yeah.
we've learned a lot along that journey. Intel, it was a just like the incubator program I was involved in. RealSense was a startup inside of Intel, and Intel, I think, not only shielded us but funded us, helped us with attorneys and patent writers and customers. So, like, if Intel had a customer that was getting into robotics, the Intel sales team would say, "Hey, you guys should go talk to our RealSense group about vision." So, we were basically incubated inside of Intel until just about 4 months ago. And then Intel, we were finally like rambunctious teenagers. You reach a point where parents can only help you so much, I think. So it was good for Intel. In fact, Intel invested in us and kicked us out of the nest, spun us out, and said, you're viable now. You're profitable. You've got market penetration. They've transferred all the patents into RealSense Inc. and inventory on hand, and we had to just incorporate and start over. But yeah, I think we're 150 people.
Okay.
It feels it's so quickly, it's amazing how fast it happened, but, like, it feels like we're operating like a startup again. Like, inside of Intel, you have a lot of rules. You're still part of a big company, and you wanna act like a startup, but you have to abide by the parents' rules living in their
Yeah.
house. But it feels like, we're running. We're running on our own without mom and dad helping.
Nice, nice.
I think we were just at that age of a company maturity where we could do that. So it was a great relationship we've had with Intel. Intel's still an investor in the new company, so it's all good.
Perfect. That actually segues into my next question perfectly. You said you spit you now that you've come out of Intel, it feels like you're not in your parents' house anymore, which is great. Another great analogy that I will use. But what changes? What is changes when you go from being, let's say, part of Intel to being an independent company? Like, practically speaking, what got harder, but what got really easy as well?
Well, I would say things that got harder is like reimbursement for expenses. Like, we don't have the systems in place yet, so, like, when I travel, I'm like entering my parking
Yeah.
my parking, fees
Yeah.
into a spreadsheet and trying to
Oh,
figure out
okay.
who do I send it to get paid back. But it's just a silly little process. Things like that got harder. But that's a startup, right? That's startup life.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you just figure that out on chat or whatever. But what got easier is working with companies like NVIDIA. Like when we were at Intel, it was kind of taboo to put an NVIDIA compute in the booth, like, and connect our cameras to it. They wanted us to
Yeah.
use Intel compute, which, you get it. But
Yeah.
now we're running everything on NVIDIA Jetsons, and we've just implemented, like, we're the first device to implement HoloScan, NVIDIA HoloScan on these devices, and it's revolutionary. HoloScan that NVIDIA developed, it lets you take all the sensor feedback and data and run it over Ethernet right into the GPUs of a Jetson. So no more, like you're talking mission critical response time, feeding all of this all the GPUs on a Jetson in real time. So now you've got direct access to AI, like from the sensor
Camera.
device. I mean, we may not have been able to do that, with in mom and dad's house. Like it was only because we were out and running fast, that we were able to partner with NVIDIA to do really cool things like that.
Nice. That's perfect. That's really good. Very two different things. So I think the takeaway is that you'd rather be on your own, almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
The small, the small inconveniences don't really matter.
Exactly. Exactly. We'll figure those out. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Go
right.
go big or
So
go
another
home, like
key
they
topic.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So another topic that gets mentioned a lot, and I saw recently that PhysicsX, a company based in the UK, raised some money. What is physical AI, robots that interact with the real world? Can you break that down a little bit for us, right? Because for our audience who are all used to using ChatGPT and probably LLMs, and what does depth perception, why is it so critical for that?
Yeah, so well, without depth perception, without eyes, the robots are blind. And they're trying to be part of the real world to help people or do tasks. Up until this physical AI movement, developers were hard coding robots. They were writing code in ROS, the robot operating system, and they were like writing, say for instance, a follow me application. They were writing, it would take like a week or more to write a follow me application. I did a follow me application live on stage a month ago in 10 minutes, using Gen AI to help me write it and physical AI to complete the mission. And let me explain that a little bit, but I'm just trying to set it up.
Yeah.
With physical AI, what you're doing, and the audience is familiar with ChatGPT and LLM. Physical AI uses that same technology, but we call it VLMs. It's like vision language models. It's basically an LLM like ChatGPT that can also process images. So it's like a multimodal LLM, they call it, but for short, we call it a vision language model. So so in my 10-minute demo, I vibe coded this robot live on stage using Cursor AI. And I said, I have a RealSense camera attached to a two-wheel robot that's running ROS. So I wanted to simplify like how you communicate with the robot, how you communicate with the camera. And I said, I want you to stream my RealSense RGB and depth data into the VLM. And if you see a person, I said, your mission is to follow a person. So look for a person, send ROS twist commands to move the robot, find the person, but stay a meter away from the person, follow them around the room. Well, what happens is the LLM, and I was using like Quinn,
Yeah.
it's a LLM that you can run like on the robot instead of going to the cloud, so it's
Hmm.
faster. But what it was doing is it was looking for a person, and when it didn't, I was blown away with what it did. Physical AI is like putting an LLM brain on a robot body, and then it
Yeah.
figures out how to control its body to complete the mission. So it's what it did was it basically said, I don't see a person, told Ross to twist the robot, maybe right a few degrees. And then the robot starts looking around the room till it found me. And then it kind of recorrected itself so that I was centered. It did all this on its own. And then it started adjusting Then it started moving forward and it started adjusting the speed, the velocity based on how far I was away from it. So it went after me kind of fast. Yeah, I didn't give it a whole lot of instruction. I gave it like a paragraph prompt of what I wanted it to do. So it came after me kind of fast. And then as it got to about a meter away, it started slowing down and then stopped. And then as I started walking, it started just creeping behind me. But I was like, in 10 minutes, Gen AI wrote that technology, and then the physical AI completed the mission and kept the mission going. So that's transformative. Like
Yeah.
you're not a programmer writing ROS code anymore. You're writing there's one other piece to physical AI. So you have the vision language model that detects things.
Mhm.
But then there's a vision action model. We call it a VLA, a vision language action model that then tells like that's the twist part. So it's like I see the person now. Let me send instructions to Ross Twist the robot, to follow the person. So that's the new world we're living in: physical AI, VLMs, and VLAs.
Perfect. That's a great, concise explanation. Thanks, Chris, for that. Now let's move on from there to your daily operations and pain points.
Yep.
That's the next topic, that broad topic that we want to cover. So let's talk about what your day to day looks like. Walk me through a typical day for you. What does the VP of Developer Ecosystem at RealSense do by the hour?
I post a lot of videos and content to social media just because I love hacking on our cameras. I love pushing and figuring out what else we can do with them, and it gives other developers ideas. If I'm not doing that, I'm talking to developers. I'm talking, which is the greatest job in the world too, because I'm talking to humanoid companies, developers at humanoid companies. I'm talking to developers at big AMR companies, or even non-robotics. I talked to someone who was using our camera like in stores, like as the Google Analytics for the real world, counting
I see.
customers and who's looking at what products. So computer vision in general is fascinating. And then I do a podcast, kind of like you, where I like to put spotlights on our customers and partners and introduce what they're doing to the world using our cameras. So
Makes sense.
it's talking with people, it's putting spotlights on people, and it's hacking on cool ideas to show people all day long. I absolutely love it. And then when we do a conference, I get to go speak at conferences, and we take a little robot dog named Whiskey along with us, who's got a RealSense camera in him. So I play with a robot dog all day long and talk to people about robots and AI and vision.
Sounds fun, Chris. I
Yeah.
think, people are listening to the podcast must be thinking, what can I do to get that job? All right. So what percentage of your time is you would call strategic, let's say building the 5-year developer roadmap versus tactical, like helping someone debug their SDK or debug their application?
Yeah, the strategy part is always on. When I talk to developers, I always start the conversation, with that Clint Eastwood movie. I want the good, the bad, and
Yeah.
the ugly. Like I want to hear the pain. I want to hear how RealSense can do better, and I love to highlight what we do really well. When I find either customers need wider field of view or different types of technologies, that strategy is always on, always listening, and always interacting with our R&D teams, our engineering teams, our product roadmaps to give them the insight of what's happening in the market. Boots on the ground, I like to say. It's like I feel like I am in touch with the developers because I talk to them all day long. And if I hear that same pain a few times, it's real. And I try to follow up and I try to get it addressed, in one of the next upcoming SDK releases, etc.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Now let's go into a little bit of what is it like? You're the VP of Dev ecosystem, so you're responsible for getting devs to adopt RealSense cameras and the other product that you mentioned. What's the biggest challenge in that? Is it like competing with other vision systems out there? Is it documentation? Is it ease of integration? Is it cost?
Boy, that's a great question. So I would start by saying competition's good. There was a time where Intel was thinking about or had announced that they were going to shut the RealSense, venture down, and that impacted us really, really hard. thankfully, they never followed through with that, but I think that statement created competitors. Like, people are saying, "Well, if the 800-pound gorilla is going away, now's an
Yeah.
opportunity to jump in and start building and selling stereo cameras too." So, I think competition's good, like, it keeps everyone on their game and innovating. Price is always a concern, like, when I talk to robot companies, sometimes I've seen some robots with 15 of our cameras on them. And, our cameras, like this camera, it's a $500-ish camera. It's
Hmm.
a state of the art, IP65 outdoor, indoor, dust weatherproof, and a lot of tops on board. But then that's driven us, feedback's driven us to create an $80 depth camera. So if you need, 15 of camera, you might try something like this, and maybe put one of these on the front, like, for its navigation, and then all of these for spatial awareness on the sides or, different parts of the robot. So I mean, it's those conversations like price that's driven us to build, other technologies that meet those needs.
Okay, makes sense. All right, I know we are running a little bit short on time, but there's one big question before we go into Gen AI revolution, if you have time. But let me ask this question before that. So, between as a role between dev adoption, documentation, content creation, lead generation, community building, hiring, and everything else, whatever else I've missed on your plate. What is, if I were to wave a magic wand and say, just one thing, just automate one process, eliminate one bottleneck, or solve one problem that's slowing you down, what would it be?
Man, you're full of really good questions. I would say robots are hard. Like, there's an old saying, hardware is hard.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, like, if you're a web developer, if you're like, it takes a lot of extra knowledge to become a robotics engineer. Like, you're dealing with hardware, you're dealing with crazy AI things like spatial awareness and simultaneous localization and mapping and navigation. It's a very complicated thing. So I would say if I could wave a magic wand, and I think Gen AI is helping solve this because Cursor like wrote that follow me application for me. I didn't
Hmm.
write a line of code in 10 minutes. So amen for Gen AI. But I think it's how do we all make robotics easier for new developers to get into this space, because I think it's revolutionary. I mean, I think it's the next $1 trillion market that the world is facing.
I see. And do you do actively something to address that as part of your role?
So we have done so, like, this brand new camera, power over Ethernet with NVIDIA Holoscan support. It's basically plug and play. Like, you don't even need to install the RealSense SDK anymore, and you don't have to install the ROS wrapper anymore. When you put an Ethernet jack, power over Ethernet jack into this camera, it automatically starts streaming all of the ROS data on RGB, on depth, like right off the camera. So you plug it into the robot and it starts working. And I
I
think
see.
that's a huge step for plug and play, for making things easier for new robotics. Now you just have to worry about how do I use that data to make my robot do things.
I see. I see. So
And
I
I would
use,
also one more comment is our open source, our SDK is open source. So when I tell Gen AI or ask Gen AI to write something, it already knows like how to interpret and use all of this data. So I think that hindsight, it was a slam dunk, but like getting to this point where Gen AI just understands the SDK and can write code. And as a developer, not installing anything anymore, it is also magical.
yeah. So are you saying that you're trying to sell more of those units to new peoples to get more people into robotics? Is that the challenge, if I understand correctly? I know that you mentioned getting new people into robotics is one of the things, right?
That's
Because it's challenging.
one. That's one. The other thing is that experienced robotics companies, they're now asking for this type of connectivity because like everything used to be USB-C. And what we're finding out is USB-C, just the tech in general, sometimes is not as resilient as it should be. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you have to reboot your like a USB hub or something. Like, it's kind of finicky, so to speak. things like Power over Ethernet or GMSL is a new robotics connectivity protocol. Those are making advanced robotics even more productive and faster with the holoscan, as I mentioned earlier. So it's the whole gamut. It's the new developers all the way up to through the experienced roboticists at billion-dollar robot companies.
Chris, it's been super incredible talking to you and listening to your lovely stories, the metaphors and the like. Thank you for being so open about the realities as well. The moving away from the parents, that was a good one. I learned a
Yeah.
lot, Chris, and I know our audience will too. If you're going to join back, hopefully with Chris at in a couple of weeks to continue this conversation, there's a big piece on Gen AI. I'd love to get Chris's input.
RealSenseAI.com, that has all the links to everything. You can buy cameras, the SDK is there, developer section. So yeah, RealSenseAI.
And finally, just one more question, Chris. Is there anyone else you think that we should be talking to who's doing funky stuff like you in the robotic space? So, audience, that was Chris Matthieu, VP of Dev Ecosystem at RealSense, and a serial entrepreneur with 5 exits. Okay, if you got value from this conversation, subscribe to the Solve Fast Labs podcast. We're going to be bringing you more conversations. Okay, links to everything that Chris mentioned will be below. Thank you, and bye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.